Hello, all sentient beings, and welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, where we talk about news, comics, and media related to V. In this extra long episode, we're joined by Mae Catt and Tim Sheridan, writers on the final chapter of the Transformers War For Cybertron trilogy on Netflix. And they tell us all about their backgrounds and the creation of the show. Also, stick around to see if the great quintesson debate gets resolved. Just a warning, there are spoilers for Kingdom after the first 30 minutes. So head over to Netflix and watch the series and then come back here.
Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, the podcast that's entering the kingdom of heaven for Transformers. I'm your host, Charles, aka Big C, and I'm joined by the excellent Transmissions team. Jeremy, aka Yakko.
Hello.
Fantastic fan artist, Apollo, aka Robo Apollo.
Hi, everyone.
And Daryl, the Cybertronian Beast.
How you doing? Let's talk Transformers.
All right, and you may have noticed we have some special guests with us today. So this is a very special alt mode, and we are very pleased to welcome two very special guests. And today is the premiere of the conclusion of the War for Cybertron series on Netflix. So we've got the minds behind the 6 episodes of the final part of the trilogy, Kingdom. Please welcome writers Mae Catt and Tim Sheridan.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us. You guys are, have a lot of Transformers credits to your names. Mae, you've done a lot of episodes of Transformers Cyberverse, and you've written the episodes 1, 3, and 5 of War for Cybertron Kingdom. And you're the story editor on the upcoming new Nickelodeon series that we don't know anything about, but we're looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yes. You can't get rid of me. I'm stuck. You're stuck with me. I'm stuck with you. We got this.
And Tim, you've written episodes 2, 4, and 6 of both the second part of the trilogy, Earthrise, and now the third part of the trilogy, Kingdom. So,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Thank you. I'm not Transformers royalty like Mae Catt. I'm just a nerd who got lucky, who grew up on this stuff.
If you give me a second, I can get a crown.
Wait.
A Starscream crown?
I wish. It's just a normal crown.
Burger King crown?
It's a Ren Fair crown, and I like it. You feel pretty.
Well, let's jump right in with the questions, because, of course, first off, are you both fans of Transformers, and what was your gateway into the world of transforming robots?
Don't look behind me.
There's a clue right behind you.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm an old guy. For me it was G1. When it happened, as it happened in the ground zero of G1 toys hitting retail and the show happening, and my very first Transformer was Cosmos.
Yes. I was going to ask you which one was your first, and I can't believe it's Cosmos.
And I remember, I don't remember the name of the store, but we were on our way driving to New Hampshire from Rhode Island, where I grew up. Hello, Hasbro. And I walked in the store, and there was this beautiful little UFO calling my name. And he was my gateway drug, his Cosmos. And then Transformers the movie in '86 changed really seriously I think there's a lot of people who agree it changed my life. I mean, I was a kid, but I had never seen the good guys lose, and I'd never seen the bad guys win or had the stakes were so real, and it taught me so much about storytelling, and how important consequences and stakes are. And so to me, that was everything for me. That was that's what the seed that was planted was in Transformers the movie for becoming a storyteller, for working in TV and movies. So yeah, it's my whole life.
I love that. I love that for you. That's awesome.
So most kids came out of that traumatized. And
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I think I'll have a career based on this.
Like,
I was transformed.
You said it.
Converted.
This is so appropriate. My gateway drug into Transformers was Beast Wars. And I don't know what was going on with scheduling, but I would watch Beast Wars right before kindergarten or first grade. It was something very early. But I would have to leave 10 minutes before the end of the episode in order to make it to school on time. So there was just like these like huge gaps in my understanding of like what happened, and like I would have to think of it on my own. And similar to you, Tim, I found Beast Wars to be unlike, and I was so young, but it wasn't like cartoons I was watching elsewhere, because it was goofy and it was campy, but it also had these like mythos, like Dinobot dying left a huge impression on me. And like the Transmutate episode similarly was like, this is television, but it's different and it's hitting different. And I like, even at like 6 or 7, like recognized that. And my Beast Wars love continued. I love Beast Machines. I unapologetically think it's one of the better pieces of Transformers media. So there you go.
I'm right there with you.
You know who I met last week? I met Marv Wolfman.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Talk about royalty.
That is royalty. That is
season
legit
3
royalty.
of Transformers, which is for me for my money, my favorite season, where we dealt with consequences from the movie, but also Beast Machines. So he's, I mean, just royalty in general. But I'm like, it was everything I could do to not like totally geek out and fangirl all over the place.
Well, for both of you, what is your favorite iteration of Transformers?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Kingdom.
Outside of
Only Kingdom.
Okay,
Only
your favorite iteration that you were not directly responsible for.
that takes out a big chunk for May.
Yeah.
No, definitely the '86 movie. It is. I can't watch it enough. I never have been able to. We used to rent a VCR on the weekends because we didn't own one.
I did the same thing.
Right. And so we would rent a VCR and we would get to choose a video, and every single week I would choose the same movie. And my parents were like, come on, you've seen it. Like, what is wrong with you?
You're like, you don't understand.
Then we finally got the VCR at home, and we were going to this place called Douglas Drug, a drugstore that rented videos, and I would every single week I'd take the Transformers the movie down, and that was what I was gonna watch. So I'm trying to figure out how to mute my thing here, because here we go. I'm gonna mute myself for a second because someone's ringing my doorbell.
Oh, thank God. Only we had that in real life. Love you too. I love it. I'll do my favorite would be IDW 1, in particular, J. Rose, More Than Meets the Eye, and Lost Light.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Wow.
when I had gotten hired for Cyberverse, I was relatively new to Transform. Like, I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan, and there's just like enough crossover that like I knew what was going on in Transformers, and obviously the Bay movies help. But when I got hired for Cyberverse, I was coincidentally starting More Than Meets the Eye, so I was like, well, I better like very quickly binge read this, and I couldn't get enough of it. I think it's spectacular.
Yeah,
awesome. So, do I have you to thank for all the IDW references sprinkled throughout Cyberverse?
Oh, there would have been so many more. Like, Whirl was such a huge win to get Whirl in the show. And it was so exciting because we would have moments on Cyberverse where we could like throw characters at our story editor and be like, look at this guy. What do you think of this guy? And very quickly like do like a pitch of like, this is what this guy's all about, or this gal, or this, non-gendered robot, alien robot. And luckily, like I presented Whirl in all his glory. And luckily that story editor was like, oh, tell me more. Homicidal helicopter, you say?
That's a win.
If it hasn't been made clear to you, Cyberverse is so much better than it ever deserves it needed to be. Like, it's so great. It was such a great show. We started watching it, and the first couple episodes were like, it's a kid's cartoon. You know, the first two episodes came out, and we're like, it's a kid's cartoon. What do you want? It's Transformers are for kids. It's, it's great, but it's good. And then just like boom, 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 hit after hit after hit, and we're like, holy shit!
Well,
What is this show about?
I only wrote on seasons 2 and 3, so thank you.
But that's when the show really started. But I'm getting to is that's when the show really started getting to its.
Oh no, I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is a wonderful compliment.
Really great show, right? And season 3 with the Matrix or the Matrix reference. It was really, really cool.
Thank you.
That was really, if there's a lot of people out there that didn't watch it because kids cartoon, and every time we walk into those people and we talk to them, we're like, dude, you guys got to watch this fucking show. This show is not it's very 2D, but give it a chance. This show is gonna blow your mind.
Yeah, come on, it's 11 minutes long. It's easy. Give it a go. But thank you for doing that. It was it's a pleasure and a privilege to have been able to work on that and to have that be. In particular, one of the first professional gigs I ever had. I'm so fortunate, and I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah. Now,
Tim, you're
the world by
too.
storm. Taking the world by storm now. Oof. My goodness.
I was stuff too, Tim. I'm sure.
I love all the DC stuff. That stuff is right in my wheelhouse, and it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I see the evidence behind you, but I do have the question here. Do you guys, what do you guys do with Transformers? Collect the toys, read the comics, watch the shows and movies, everything, all of the above?
May.
Yeah, it looks.
Sure. I'll do this. Oh God, I hit the mic. Oh, wait,
no. You know what? I'll take over then.
No, it's right here. They're right here. They're over here.
Yeah.
There's some toys.
I'm naturally a collector, so I collect. And Natalie, my wife, my fiance, excuse me, I'm so very eager. My fiance loves transforming them, but I don't like that their joints might get a little loose. So sometimes we have to double up on getting an Optimus or something.
I'm
one to play with, one to look at.
Yeah. I'm a lifelong collector that started with Transformers and has, become a lot of other types of action figures and toys as well. But today I was, it's so funny. It never goes away. Like today I clicked on a video on YouTube of the new buzzworthy Bumblebee with the Cybertronian mode Bumblebee. And I didn't know this was happening. I'm so excited. I can't wait to have it. We've got a pretty big Transformers collection. I got one guy right here that I had to have because, how can I not? The thing is, I'll probably never fully transform him. Like, he's so good in this mode that I just love the planet,
You also need to block off your calendar for a weekend.
Have you transformed it at all, Tim?
Yeah, I got about halfway, and then I said, first of all, this is going to take me a week.
Yes.
Second of all, I'm going to break something because I just don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And then I gave up, and I put him back in this mode, which I love better anyway. So I don't know. Someday, it's a lifelong project. One day I will transform Unicron.
I feel like it's a rite of like all my toys, even though I collect them, I will transform them once and be like, okay, I did it. I was contractually obligated to do this. Now you go here.
Yeah.
Look how pretty you look.
Well, so how did you both get into script writing, and have you mostly written for animation or done other things?
Oh, I'd love to hear. I don't know if I know this story, Tim.
Well, it goes back a ways. I went to drama school.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be voicing Transformers, not writing them. But I moved to Los Angeles as a classically trained Shakespearean for some reason, because this is where all the great Shakespeare happens in LA. And after a long string of successlessness, I finally decided to dive into writing because I'd always written my whole life. It was something that I used to tell myself that other people do it better, so why should I do it? And then, I don't know, one day I woke up and I said, there's a lot of people who make a good living who are just terrible at this. And I could do at least as good as that, right? And so, and some people will argue I can't, but so that was kind of, I started down the road, and yeah, I've mostly worked in animation. My first job on a series was on a show called Justice League Action, which was also 11 minutes, like Cyberverse. And there's something about starting out at 11 minutes, May. I think you'll agree that you have to be able, if the skill that you have to learn to tell the story in 11 minutes in like 15 pages of script is it's a heck of a thing. It's a great training ground. So the economy that you have to use. So that's it. So I've worked on animated movies. I started off doing stuff for younger folks. I wrote a lot of Scooby-Doo stuff, but I've written a lot of DC. I've written some movies, and long Halloween movies out right now that I scripted, and obviously the joy of my life was getting the call to come and work on War for Cybertron. Because let me tell you something. I always thought when I started working in animation, I thought there's a good chance that one of these days I'm going to get to work on a Transformers show. Like, if I try, like, there's always going to be a Transformers show. I can probably do it. And I always thought, but it will never be my Transformers experience. It'll never be rooted heavily in G1. It will be something new for kids that is reinvigorating the brand. And it'll be great, but it won't have enough of the stuff that I grew up on, that I love so much and can talk about. And then they were like, well, let's explain to you how War for Cybertron works. It was basically like all my G1 fantasies come true in Earthrise when I came on to that. And I just can't believe, I feel like the luckiest man in town that I got to write on and work on a Transformers show that's so steeped in G1. And it was like bringing my childhood and sort of growing, having grown up on the show, now growing up with the show, and letting the show grow up with all of us. That was what it was like. And then thank God for Mae Catt on Kingdom, because I, as a G1 nerd, had a few things to learn about Beast Wars. While a fan, there is no bigger fan, I think, of Beast Wars than Mae Catt. Thank God.
That's not true. But like, how fun that we were having similar experiences on this show, because that's how I felt, was like, oh my God, Beast Wars. I get to come home in a weird way. And so magical that we were both doing that.
It's complimented really well.
Thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. How did I get started? I got started. I'm one of those weirdos who grew up in LA. Like, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley and I just never left. I got started by writing fan fiction, and in particular, yes, Matrix fan fiction. But those were my proving grounds. And oh God, to make a long story super short, I got Final Draft as a birthday gift, wrote a feature film when I was like 14. It was like 135 pages and terrible. It won a high school screenwriting contest where the prize was you get to meet professionals and have like a practice general meeting. And one of those professionals was Greg Weisman. And
wow.
Yeah, years later, like literally I'm out of college. I'm bumming around Warner Brothers Blue Ribbon Content, which at the time was doing a lot of online stuff. And I was pitching like tertiary DC characters to them. And I knew Young Justice was coming back. And I mentioned to the people I was interfacing with, like, oh, I know Greg, or I met him years ago. I'd love to meet him again. And they were like, okay, we can make that happen. Like, God bless them. And they did. And I walk into Greg's office, and I think it's going to be like a general meeting again. Like, I think it's just going to be like, look, Greg, I'm alive. That's crazy. And he offered me a script on the new Young Justice season. And I had this moment where I was like, I don't have an animation sample because that wasn't really on my radar. Like, do you need to read anything from me? And he was like, I read what you wrote when you were like 14. I think you're going to be fine. And thank God I was. And
Oh,
then
that's awesome.
cut to like months later, Cyberverse comes up. I had met with the Hasbro like live action division, and I was only 25. It's not like they're going to hand me like a Cobra Commander movie, but they should. But they sent me over to the animation side, and even then, I didn't really have an animation sample, but I had the clout that yes, I had worked on Young Justice. By then, the script was done. I just couldn't give it to them yet, and they kind of just took a leap of faith on me. A leap of faith with me? They took a chance on me. There we go.
They pushed you off a cliff.
Yes, and I flew miraculously, and here we are.
You converted into a jet and took off.
Oh,
Can I
boy.
just say this? Can I say that when I was working on my Superman movie, I had an office at Warner Animation that was like 2 doors down from Greg Weisman's office.
Dude.
And I have never met Greg Weisman, May.
Should we make it happen? Should we all get lunch?
I don't understand how you can like just walk in and say Greg Weisman and suddenly they carry you on a litter, fanning you with pom-poms.
I'm just that damn cute. I'm just that
Nice.
charming.
Well, I can't argue with that.
Aw.
I'm a fan of gargoyles.
Yes.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Smart man. Smart man.
Oh, yes. And also, I work in animation live action spaces as well. So
Oh, awesome.
I have a foot in both worlds. That was the other part of the question. You can cut that out. That was weird.
Well, what is there any live action stuff that we might have seen or?
Oh, if you were one of the people who downloaded Quibi, you might have, because I worked on a Sam Raimi produced Quibi show called 50 States of Fright, and I did talk about writing for 11 minutes as your proving grounds into the professional writing space, because Quibi operated on a very similar basis, where it was like these are short films, and you get to watch them on the go. And I remember getting the job and we were pitching the story and they were like, could you do that in 15 pages? And I was like, oh yes, I can. I am uniquely qualified to absolutely deliver this at 15 pages.
Thank you, Cyberverse. Thank you very
right.
much.
And
I mean, if you look at the old Looney Tune shorts that were before movies, those are all, no more than 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So it goes a long way in animation.
Absolutely. And then, I got to take notes from Sam Raimi. It was magical. I probably almost threw up several times.
I'm about to throw up right now just listening to talk about it.
I showed up 2 hours early and then sat in my car for a while, walked around the block. At one point, the directors of my short is approaching me, Yoko Akamura. And as she's approaching me, we're going to enter together. I just say, I'm not well, Yoko. She was like, what did you say? I'm like, I'm fine. It's fine. Let's go. Dreams come true sometimes.
Yeah.
So in particular, how did you guys get put onto War for Cybertron? I know Tim, you started with Earthrise, and May, you're both in Kingdom. So how did that happen?
For me, there was a vacancy at Earthrise, and happily,
You're like, yoink.
yeah, FJ DeSanto, knew who I was. We had met. He had pitched sort of what was happening with War for Cybertron, and I was really into it. But I was at Warner Brothers under contract, and so I was like, this is amazing. And someday I would love to, and then when an opening came up, he called. And the beauty of that was his office was in the building next to Warner Animation. So I just got to walk just down the street. It was really nice. But yeah, so that was that. And then happily, it went well enough that they asked me to stick around for Kingdom, which was just a great honor. So.
I was still on Cyberverse when I believe Michael Hauser, who was our one of our execs on Cyberverse, recommended me to FJ. And I probably met FJ around the same time Tim did, where I got a similar spiel. And honestly, I when he retells it, I think he has it that I ask him about Beast Wars, or I don't quite remember, but at some point I do say so are the Beast Wars characters going to be in this? Because I think he hinted that like it was going to, one of these seasons was going to be during the 25th anniversary. And he was like, actually, yeah. And we're thinking of incorporating them. And I do distinctly remember looking between him and Matt Murray and like into the dead space between them and being like, wow, if I could write for Dinobot, yeah, that'd be great.
Staring into the dead universe.
Yeah.
Totally. And so like, you know, and because animation, you know, it takes a long time. So like, I don't know how long between that initial meeting and when I got the call for Kingdom came, but enough time had passed that I had kind of like forgotten about it. And then FJ calls me and he's like, and he was just like, do you want to write for the Beast Wars characters? And I was like, what? It's happening? Oh my God. And yeah, there it was. Here we are.
Wow. So what was the process of, I think you basically, I guess FJ had the story mapped out and then he handed it to you guys to write the script. So what did that process look like? Did you collaborate together and kind of write it together and then trade off, or how did you develop each of the individual scripts?
I'm pretty sure like the first day, by the way, it was like, well, who wants to write the first episode? And I said, not it. And we got to write the first one. You know, FJ, I'm gonna say this. FJ had a really strong idea of where the whole series was going. I imagine that on Siege they had a lot of detail. On Earthrise, he had a pretty good idea of what was generally going to happen in every episode. But when we got to Kingdom, by that time, I think, you know, they were in production on the other seasons. And so we were kind of given a little bit more leeway, just because since I worked on Earthrise, I can tell you comparatively, we had a little bit more leeway where, you know, he put Mae and I in a room who Mae and I had never met. We didn't know each other at all. We met in the lobby going into this room. And there's like, he said, okay, create. And then he left and we were just two of us in the room, and we had a big whiteboard and we started mapping out sort of what things would go. But like I said, we had a general idea of where we were going to head.
Yeah, we had goalposts.
Yeah, but I think it was just a lot freer than what we had with Earthrise. But it was a joy from the very beginning, and I was just like, oh, again, thank God for Mae Catt, because I felt really taken care of. I'm a needy man.
It was like, and I had rewatched a couple Beast Wars episodes just to like get the vibe check on them. But then in the room where we're like having to kind of like meld these canons in a way that like functioned for us, I was like, oh, I remember a lot more of this than I thought I did. And it was beautiful to be able to be like, no, that's not how the golden disc works. This is what's going on.
Do you remember when it struck us about, because this wasn't part of, I don't remember this being part of the plan originally, but when it struck that we would sort of use the launching point as that episode in Beast Wars where they board the Ark, you know, and sort of that concept that they could coexist in the same time frame. Do you remember that, Mae?
I do. I remember you having an epiphany and me being like, yes.
But it was an epiphany, and I literally don't remember how it happened now. I was going to say you said it, so I don't know.
I probably did.
This is how it works, though. This is what was so great about the process, to be serious for a second, is that, I mean, I can't even tell you whose idea was what and where things began and ended, because it was just like, yes, and this. How about this? You know, I was a little jealous when Mae started pitching stuff for, you know, characters like Galvatron, and, you know, and I was just like, come on, like, let me do the G1 guys.
Then I had thoughts. No, it was, you know what, like, because every writer's room is different, obviously, but, you know, they tend to be more than two people.
Yeah.
And so there was this kind of like lightning in a bottle magic of like, there's not more people to include in this conversation. There's not more people where you could potentially miscommunicate and have to like repitch an idea. It was just like you and me just like really vibing with like, this is obviously what it should be.
But there's also a tug of war that happens when there's only two people in the room. And like when you've got an idea and maybe you haven't gotten the other person on board, and you know, you kind of talk through it, and ultimately if you can't convince them, you come up with a new idea. Yeah. And that's the thing about when you work with professionals like Mae, you know, you can trust that you're going to get to, there's always a better idea. That's the thing. Like what you see on screen ultimately is because at some point we had a deadline, but we will always have another idea. There's always going to be a better joke or a better line or a better thing. And so just sort of being able to trust that, we would find the thing, even if we didn't agree on little bits and pieces along the way, made the whole experience just incredibly joyful.
You're totally right, because like once we started loosely figuring out each episode, then we got more detailed. My favorite point in time, by the way, it was 305 or no 303, where it was just like the setup, and then it was like space where plot would go, and at the very bottom it said Dinobot dies. And I remember pitching.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think because I haven't seen the show.
This is coming out after the show is out. So,
but it's kind of like Dinobot and Optimus have the same kind of gimmick. They both die.
True. But I remember FJ and just being like, this happens, and something goes here, and then Dinobot dies, obviously. But yeah.
So I'll take this opportunity now to say, anyone listening to the podcast, warning. We're going to go into heavy spoilers for War for Cybertron Kingdom.
Hopefully we're putting that at the beginning too, like on screen or something.
It'll be in the graphic.
Good.
Yeah, you could just slap a huge spoiler over this face.
Yeah.
But I'm not kidding. Like we can talk to like what we wrote, but I haven't seen, May, I don't think you have either, seen the final product yet while we're recording this. So I actually don't know if they like what kind of changes were made during production. I moved on to other shows. May moved on to other shows, and so that's just the way the process usually works. So you might have more to tell us about what happened. But there is a thing. It's very interesting. I learned this on Earthrise, where May, to your point about like this, some stuff is going to happen, and then Dinobot dies, and it's episode 3 of 6, and it's only 6 short episodes. And so you have all these ideas and all these things you want to do, but ultimately it has to be about the characters and how much time can you spend with them and learning about them, and that it doesn't get eaten up by all the plot stuff that you've got to get through, because you've got to care about Dinobot again if we're gonna lose him. And so it's a really difficult thing when you're only working with a few short episodes. We found it on Earthrise, and I hope it works in Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, like before we move on, I did want to say, like, once we got writing, we were a little more isolated, just because like how the work process had to be, and so there was a bit of like just faith in the other person that like it's gonna work out. It has to, and then it would. Like I would get your scripts just so I knew what I was doing on like the next one, and being like, okay, cool, we're cooking with gas. We've got like a show.
And also, like, I would be inspired, but I'd be like, oh, okay, you would drop a thing. And I would say, well, maybe I can yes and that and add a little bit of something to it, reference it, so that I mean, that's the kind of it was really a baton race when we got into scripting, and I think the scripts ended up better because of it.
I'd say so, for sure.
Can I ask a bit of a behind the curtain question? So you guys just met to do this show. You're now obviously working on something that is complete mystery. We have no idea anything about it. So what happens is for, you guys working as a team here, do you, if somebody hires one of you and you say, okay, well, this is a show that I think May would really work good on, or this is a show that I think Tim would really be a benefit on, could you recommend a writer to come into the project, or is this just luck of the draw that you guys get put back together again?
It can be both. Sometimes it's luck of the draw, and sometimes it's like you said. I mean, I was just talking to May about this, today or yesterday. I was saying how I'm working on a show, and there's a possible opening that's going to happen, and because of working closely with May on a couple of projects, May's at the top of my list. So like, if somebody asks me, or if I'm in a position to say, well, look. Yeah, am I praising you? Sure. But also, I am a selfish, lazy man. And I feel like it is so much better knowing that I'm recommending somebody who I trust to not only be able to do the job and do it well, and that I'm going to be able to vibe and work with, right? But who's also going to make me look good for recommending them.
That's super
So-
fair.
Of course.
That's really how it can be both. Sometimes it's random. I mean, I don't know. I think it was our second gig together. I think was kind of random. I mean,
super
sort of.
was.
We knew the showrunner, and so both of us independently of one another. But yeah, you know, when I'm running, and there's other things. You know, sometimes we're running shows, and when I'm running a show again, I've got a list of people that I'm going to go to, and you know, people like Mae are on that list because it's going to make my life better.
Oh, you're on my list too, Tim. I feel like I've reached the stage of this is probably not going to mean anything to you, Tim, and I apologize. I'm an Ivysaur on my way to a Venusaur in terms of like.
I married the biggest Pokemon fan.
Oh, that's right. I apologize. I'm an Ivysaur, and I'm just getting to a point in my career where like I can, like people do ask me for recommendations, and it's still very new to me.
Yeah,
but you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, you're on my list, bro.
We both are, though. Like, we're both kind of very in similar places in our careers. And I think that's just now happening, where I'm getting sort of the question of, well, who do you think we can bring in, you know?
How delightful.
Right on.
Yeah, it's delightful because you got there a lot faster to this spot in our career. I did. It took me years and years of, like, you know.
The key was obviously Matrix fan fiction. That's a
Yeah. The secrets.
yeah, just nonstop Agent Smith and Neo kissing. That's all it was. That was the missing ingredient.
The fast track.
Well, let's dive into those Kingdom spoilers. So again, if you haven't watched Kingdom yet, shut this off and go watch all 6 episodes and come back.
So should I shut this off and go watch the episode?
I'm sorry. We were talking about this before the show, but if I had known that you guys had not seen it, I would have lent you my Netflix password to check it out. But
we also did not think to ask. It's okay.
It's really all FJ's fault.
We like to believe that they literally just made the show exactly as we laid out in the script.
Why not? We figured it all out.
It was perfect.
So what were some of the major like the most important themes that you wanted to include in the show, and like what were the overarching like big ideas that you wanted to make sure were in the show?
I mean, you know, I can speak of coming out of Earthrise, there were some seeds that were planted. Things had been planted since Siege. I mean, remember, we weren't just tasked with writing this great Beast Wars G1 Meeting of the Minds, season of episodes, but we were also tasked with landing the War for Cybertron plane. And so there were things that were going to have to, come to a head. Specifically, I think, for me, Optimus Prime's journey, we had to kind of pay that off. I mean, we had to, and I would say Optimus Prime and Megatron. I mean, we spent a lot of time roughing up the edges of sort of who's good and who's bad and why. And, it's so much more interesting to me when you can understand why Megatron's doing what he's doing. And it complicates things. It gets things a little bit more real life and messy. And so Optimus's journey to sort of coming to terms with the decisions he's made and the consequences that have, been invoked because of them, was really kind of where my compass was, throughout all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And, to allow the Beast characters to be there as, one of my favorite things I wrote was the conversation between Primal and Prime that I hope is in there, in 303, where it's just the two of them kind of talking about like what Optimus was trying to save and the tragedy that, he failed, and Primal this isn't even a part of his history. He just
all that got cut. That's all gone.
Is that where Primal mentioned they had a crew of like over 200 and now this is all that's left?
Yeah.
But another overarching thing that I am particularly like, Starscream is, he's basic. I love G.I. Joe. I love Cobra Commander, which means I love Starscream. And in particular, I love Starscream as person who has suffered a great deal physically at the hands of someone else. And I really wanted to be able to speak to that in some manner. It, not necessarily a conclusion. I don't necessarily think we concluded it, but like just to start adding that kind of language into Starscream, and just, that kind of self-knowledge that is a thing that has happened to him was very important to me. And I hope it continues in that character. I hope it continues as a part of who he is, that it's not just like a thing that happens to him, but a thing he recognizes and has to contend with in some way, be it, confrontation, be it denial, be it actually like facing it head on, whatever. That was very important to me as well.
I mean, what you're talking about is the stuff that we tried to do with Optimus Prime and Megatron, and like you can do it. You can have a lot of fun doing that with Optimus Prime and Megatron. But at the, when we're getting into Kingdom, for you, Mae, to have that as a focus, that we're going to do the same thing with Starscream, that we're going to rough up those edges a little bit and start to understand what makes this guy tick. That kind of stuff. For me, is about how we, the show grows up with us. And, we all, this is how I played with the toys when I was a kid. I mean, they had these kind of emotional relationships and deep stakes to everything that was done or said. And so that was something I think we wanted to be able to do. We wanted to really feel like these are people,
Yeah, people and people who have been at war for an untold, like the human mind cannot comprehend how long they've been at war and how much they've given up, and like to see that really manifest in them in some way.
And what an opportunity to have the G1 guys meet these Beast Wars characters, and for Optimus Prime, who's grappling with, and Megatron, we're grappling with the concept of, is there a future for their people? There's just a lot of rich emotional, ground you can cover, and so in 6 episodes. But so look, is it fun, and are there fights and action and like MacGuffins and cool stuff and transforming? Yeah. But the stuff that really, that I love sinking my teeth into is when you put, Optimus Prime in a room talking to Ultra Magnus or Elita One or Megatron, or Nemesis Prime, and what comes out of that conversation.
Yeah. So Mae, just to follow up on your kind of focus on Starscream, is that why he gets towards the end of the series, he gets kind of a pivotal role where he unites everyone and kind of has I guess it's a face turn, not a heel turn, a face turn, where he kind of sees, he has an epiphany and says, okay, I'm going to break the cycle, and I'm going to make sure that but Cybertronians in general have a future, and that we don't just destroy ourselves. So it was interesting to see Starscream actually do that rather than just kind of fall into his old patterns.
Absolutely. I mean, like, speaking of our like collaboration, I don't remember how we landed on like that is where we're going to take Starscream. Obviously, I have my biases and my hopes, but I totally don't remember how we landed there.
I'm pretty sure anything that got pitched that was Starscream related that was interesting. I mean, I love Starscream. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and like, particularly for me, it's, I think in 303 he's having that confrontation with Dinobot, I hope. And Dinobot is able to recognize like you're using your pain as justification for your own selfishness. And then to have that character, have that stated to him, whether or not he recognizes that as a truth or it doesn't matter, because it does matter. But in our story, he kind of he gets hit into another wall where it's like, hey, not only is that true, is that what you're doing, but it doesn't fucking matter. And to have this narcissistic character of all the characters like be like, oh no, nothing we do is actually is actually going to benefit anybody. Like this is all because of something else. Like it puts him in such a fascinating space. And I was so excited that like Tim, we got there together, that you supported me. Like, because there's moments in Transformers writers' rooms, well, I'll be like Starscream and they'll be like, Mae, no, we can't have all the interesting scenes. So
not this guy. Not this guy.
Have the freedom on Kingdom to be like, no, I think there's something really special with this character, and I want to take him in new and fun ways, or not necessarily fun, but new and enticing ways. And to have that be received so well is such a wonderful gift.
I mean, yeah, and I'm just there thinking, when can we get the cape and crown? Like,
right?
Yeah. Yep. That was in there too. No, as a fellow Starscream fan, as you can see, like I very much picked up on it, and I really appreciated all the powerful dialogue and just moments he had in the show. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah, I gotta give credit to Apollo. She wrote a huge chunk of these questions here. So
yeah,
imagine all these questions being asked in Apollo's voice.
Got it.
Yeah. So, what were some things that got left on the cutting room floor in your scripts for Kingdom?
Well, they would know.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sure there. I mean, if there are any ideas that were in the writer's room that didn't make it into the final script.
We're
I mean, I know you don't know.
Give you our ideas that they didn't produce. What do you think this is?
I'll say I really want to transmutate in the show. I want transmutate in basically everything. And
she got a toy.
Yeah, she's got a toy, and it was just a character asset issue. But yeah, like I came in like guns blazing, like I want Silverbolt and I want transmutate, and they're like, the budget, and also we can't have like 30, 40 characters running around, but we can have 25 or whatever. But
there was I can't remember exactly where, but there was a Black Arachnia scene where you heard a wolf's howl as a reference to Silverbolt.
Mm-hmm.
I remember us turning that scripted, and I legit like in the email to FJ was like, "This is a reference to Silverbolt, a beloved Beast Wars character."
Oh, that's awesome! That's all that was in the script, so that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, like I don't think there was anything particularly left on the cutting room floor. And like Tim's right, we're not going to give you our ideas; those are to be recycled in other things.
The closest I will give you is that I tried in Earthrise to have Springer as a character leading a faction of Autobots from one of the moons of Cybertron that would, sort of be this SWAT team of Autobots that would show up when we needed them. And I really wanted to bring them into Kingdom, like have them show up and, in a really climactic moment. But we couldn't use them, unfortunately. So it never got into Earthrise, so it never got into Kingdom.
I bet they would have had a cool name for their group too.
They would, but I'm not going to tell you what it was.
I wonder.
Mae, how often did you have to include notes like that to FJ? Like, this is a specific reference to a Beast Wars thing.
Oh, not that many. I mean, FJ was very honest in his when he was like, "Hey, this is not my wheelhouse. I know a lot, and I'm here to be a guiding hand and get this show as good as it can. But there are, there's gaps in my knowledge, so feel free to let me know." So there would be moments like that where, God, what was another one? Just a couple lines here or there where I was like, it's from, I'm referencing this moment in the cartoon. I'm referencing this moment, but
But along those lines, Mae, to what you just said about FJ sort of being a guiding force and a guiding hand, I've never felt so trusted by, a producer, and he was so helpful, and could tell. The best part too, one of the best things about FJ is not only does he get excited about story, you pitch him some fun story, he gets really into it, and he starts coming up with some ideas that you end up wanting to incorporate because they're so good. But the other thing is, he was just in the midst of the production, and he knew what the challenges were on the production side for some of the things now and then that you might want to do. He'd say, well, this is great, but we're going to have to adapt it because, we can't really show this, or we can't do this at this point. So to keep us sort of in line was great because you need that kind of structure. You have to know what the parameters are and where we can go and where we should go. But I think that there was, I feel like, do you remember the ARC conversation about how that came about?
No.
And I feel like he gave us that. I feel like he was like, oh, they're doing this with the toy, so we're going to have to do this. But I don't remember. In my memory, it was FJ saying, letting us know what Hasbro was doing. And it sort of let us run our imaginations wild, which was great. So he's a joy to work with. I mean, you guys, I know you've talked to him, you know him. I mean, he's a fun guy to work for.
He was pretty pumped about the ARC stuff.
Yeah.
We talked to him.
I think because they were able to be the origination of the assets that Hasbro used.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of you decided to call the ARC Teletran? Oh, awesome! You're my favorite person in the world.
Episode, but we both probably did.
Oh.
I don't even remember what show is this again. No, but really, we were such a hive mind that I don't know. It probably came up in the room, maybe, or whatever, or May dropped it in a script, or I dropped it in somewhere, Then it all kind of blends.
I wrote the episode that introduces the ARC as its bot mode or his bot mode, but I don't remember who originated that idea.
Oh, that's the stuff that didn't get in the show that I can't tell you about. I can't tell you about I think 11 or 12 different endings.
Oh, there you go.
That I went through for the last episode that were all designed to set up another story. And they were all different sort of ways of coming at stories, different things. But you just reminded me of it, May, when you were talking about that. There was, I can't tell you, but
you and I don't even know which one they landed on, dude.
I don't even know which one they landed on. I don't know which one they used. I wrote, I think 11 or 12 different versions, and we kept going through it and was like, no, not this. Or yes, this, but then Hasbro's like, no, don't do that. And then, it was like and then I wrote one, and I was like, I don't like this.
What was great about that is I was done writing. I had written 305. The final draft of 305 was turned in. And you would text me about how this was happening. And I would just be like, oh, that's so sad.
I was like, I can't sell them on anything,
Oh.
But it had all that. It had a lot behind it because there were a lot of questions about whether we were going to move forward with War for Cybertron and how that would work, and whether there would be another show, like any of that. Like there were just a lot of different opinions about how we would go forward. So I just kept throwing stuff at the dartboard, and there's some cool ideas in there, if I do say so. I mean, there's some fun stuff that if I ever get to make my Transformers show, you're gonna see that. Then that's why I can't tell you about it.
Well, I guess I can spoil you. The ending that made it into the show was that at the very end, after the Autobots, Decepticons, Predacons, Maximals, they won. They are at peace. The planet is healed and everything. And then you cut to a scene in space. Unicron has grabbed Nemesis Prime and Galvatron, and he says, "Okay, this time failed, but now we're going to try again." And that's how the show ends.
They did mine. They did the one I wanted. That was the one I wanted so badly. I hope people liked it, because for me, it was so interesting. I was like, well, what's next? Well, who are these guys now? Oh, well, that's...
Congratulations.
I know. I can't believe it. It was the first one I wrote. It was the first
No, you're joking.
And it kept... Oh, no, wait. Maybe it was the second.
All right.
The fact
that it's in the beginning half of what is 12 potential endings. That's awesome.
It might have been the second one, but because the first one was pretty good too, though. So, but no, that's so amazing. I'm so glad you told me that. I can't wait to see it.
But we're so disappointed now.
We don't get to see the other 11 endings.
Yeah.
No. The future, right?
Someday you will.
It'll be a whole beginning. It'll be a beginning of a new thing.
We'll have a multiverse
Yes.
where every ending happened in one point or another.
So there were a couple of Beast Wars characters that I did miss that that were notable exceptions. So I was just wondering if you did have any thoughts on Waspinator or Tarantulas. Those guys didn't show up at all, but those are definitely fan favorites. But I was thinking maybe they didn't fit the tone of the show, or maybe Tarantulas had his part taken by Black Arachnia basically in the show. Or
Tarantulas probably died at some point before the show began. I'll tell you what, I feel like I was the first Kingdom fan to mourn the no Waspinator. I do remember being like, but Waspinator, and they're like the assets in the story, and I'm like, oh, you're right, but Waspinator.
Don't even. I remember the meeting. I remember Mae called a meeting, brought us all together, and said, listen, I've got an anti-Waspinator agenda that I need. And we were like, whoa, because at that point, Mae was really coming, into their power. And it was like, we all backed off. And we said, okay, fine. We all love Waspinator, but it's not going to happen.
I swear to God, I feel like I could show you like 3 insect-based Beast Wars characters and asking you to pick out which one's Waspinator. And I don't know if you would be able to do it.
I will guarantee you right now, first of all, there are insect. No, I'm just kidding. No, it'll never happen. But that to seriously answer that question though, like there is a real challenge in a show like this with the amount of assets you have access to. It maybe one of the great things was if they made a toy, there was a good chance that we were going to be able to use that. They would scan the toy and really use that to create the different modes for the character. But you need to have 3 models. You've got to have I'm sure FJ's told you about this, right? Where you have the one, robot mode, and then the alt mode, and then the transformed mode. And you can only do, so you're basically turning one character into 3 characters at that point. And there's only so much money in the world. And at some point you just can't have everybody. So you have to make tough decisions.
And I feel like those tough decisions, I think they were made before we showed up. But like, I know that it was a Sophie's choice for everybody involved to be like, who's actually going to make it into the show. Like when I showed up and like Tigatron was in it, I was just like, oh my God, Tigatron. He made it. Oh, yes.
It wasn't even about the characters that we couldn't use. For me, it was like when I came out on Earthrise and they're like, well, so Bumblebee, but he never transforms. I was like, wait, what? Or
that was one of the funniest scenes in Earthrise for us when they drive off and everyone just hops on the back of Optimus. They're like, roll out. Okay.
I am listen, on behalf of everyone in the world of Hollywood budgets, I apologize.
Hey, we get it. We understand.
Yeah.
Listen,
FJ was telling us how FJ was telling us how
what allowed us to be able to make a whole Kingdom show with all these Beast Wars characters.
Right.
I mean, that's literally the reason we were able to create all these Beast Wars characters and do this was because we got to kind of be economical in Siege and Earthrise. So.
Yeah, I think you told us that a character was like removed from Earthrise to allow them to be able to make an asset for another Beast character in Kingdom.
Oh,
I can't remember who it was that was removed.
It's a delicate balance.
Or like an alt mode or something.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember the specific circumstance of who it was, but yeah, that's the thing is you're just shuffling, moving things around. I mean, Matt Murray is over there tearing his hair out, trying to figure out how to make it work because they want to make what we put on the page work. At the end of the day, if it's good, if everybody believes in it, and sometimes, but like I said, sometimes it's just hard decisions, right, Nate?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, look, if they're not in Kingdom, they probably died before people showed up.
Only 200 left,
Yeah, that's my theory.
Or there were 200 and there's only a handful left, I think is what it was, right?
And then Matt did go into a little bit of detail. He didn't give us specific numbers, but he did say that, for people that keep questioning why Peter Cullen's not in the show, he's like, well, Peter Cullen, if you wanted Peter Cullen, you'd only get 2 characters on the screen. So it'd be a really crappy show. So
waiting for Godot with Optimus and Megatron.
You just,
and by the way, Peter Cullen deserves everything. Like, absolutely. Like, he should never do this for, a pittance, for goodness sake. He's Peter Cullen. So, at the end of the day, I think it was everybody that's the right call. You know, we get to tell a bigger, more epic story, and
Not bother him.
and seriously,
Please, sir.
please do this for free, please. No, it's not show friends, it's show business. Which Peter Cullen said to me. No, I'm just kidding.
Then he had his man punch you in the face.
So another thing we noticed that we were really happy to see was we did get a little bit of a LGBTQIA representation in the show, and that was something that was unexpected but welcome. And just curious if you guys had to fight for that, or just that organically came up and everyone was like, yeah, go for it, or if there was any kind of discussion behind the scenes on that.
Ooh.
There was, as I recall, May, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall any real pushback. Do you? I mean, I remember questions about like whether we have time to really invest in characterizations and things, and where we have space for stuff. But it was never sort of like, at least from my perspective, it was never, we don't want to do that because it's not something we want to promote or something. It wasn't anything like that as far as I saw. But what was your experience?
Speaking of like things you want in the show that get cut, of course, like, I want to diversify Transformers as much as possible for as many people as possible, because it's a show that, these characters mean a great deal to people. And how wonderful would it be to share what makes them so great to people and what makes them special with other people who might not necessarily have been able to identify with them before. So I'm on a constant, dare I say, siege to increase how these characters are, depicted, and in what ways can they represent and be metaphorical to actual people and actual human experiences, and the wide breadth of human experience. This isn't always possible. It's, it depends on the show and depends on the franchise, and it's particularly with a franchise like Transformers, which is 40 years old and has concepts of itself. It has its own idea of what it is, and sometimes it wants to expand that, but it doesn't always know how. And so that gets into interesting conversations where there is an open, wide invitation, and then sometimes there can be a little bit miscommunication or confusion on like how to go about that, what is the best way to go about that. So it's a ongoing process. I am so happy and so proud that any sort of queerness was able to be on our show. And I have a very distinct memory of asking FJ in our first meeting, like, how explicit can we get with queer representation? Because that is obviously something that's very important to me. And I just had to ask, because sometimes you don't know, and I didn't want to be coy about it. I didn't want to sneak it in. I just wanted to be like, tell me so I know. FJ said absolutely.
I remember.
Yeah, he was all for it.
Yeah, and I remember exactly the moment that you're talking about too. And I as a queer man myself, sitting there when you asked that question and thinking, I'm thinking, oh man, the answer is going to be, yeah, let's not make this. I'm just so used to being in places. I mean, I knew FJ at that point, so I wasn't. He would have never said that. But I've been in those rooms where it can become a discussion.
It's a much more complicated discussion, even though it shouldn't be.
Yeah, but certainly not with FJ. He was very supportive with everything we wanted to do. There is a thing, though. There is an interesting thing we went through. Look, coding is a thing that used to happen. I would like to say it still happens, but it was really the point of like coding, where characters may be sort of representative of a certain type of person, in this case let's say queer people, but it's not explicitly said back in the olden days, but queer people watching it and observing this media would identify it, and it was a way of talking to those people in the audience and sort of building a community, a silent community of folks who didn't feel like they could talk to each other and be open about who they were. And there's a long legacy, a very complicated legacy of that within media and entertainment. In some ways, we have evolved where we actually can, we do have opportunities to have explicit representation in a lot of different types of media. Certainly War for Cybertron, one of the unfortunate things about this business is that a lot of people look at animation and they think it's just for kids. Now, let alone how the argument for that some people make that there shouldn't be queer representation in front of kids is something that I'm not even going to get into today, because I think that's incredibly backwards and bizarre. You should prepare your kids for the world they're growing up in and inheriting, and there are queer people in it, so get into it. But I think that nowadays, because we have opportunities, and certainly on War for Cybertron, we didn't have to have that argument, which I sometimes had to have about being a kids show. Nowadays, coding, there is an evolved version of coding that happens where it is not about reaching out to everyone who is a specific type of person and making them feel like they're part of a community. There is sort of maybe it's a reverse coding where we generalize it enough that everyone can kind of see themselves in a character. So you might look at a character in War for Cybertron, in Kingdom, or in Superman, Man of Tomorrow, or in another property, and see, oh, this is a character who's coming out of the closet. Or you might look at it and say, this is a character who has the same immigrant story that I have, or this is a person who's on the social spectrum, and I identify with that because that's just like me. And I think that when we do our best work, we make characters inclusive in a way that everyone can sort of see something of themselves reflected in them. And so in a way, it's kind of a reverse coding that can happen nowadays. But I think that kind of thing can be helpful. It does not take the place of explicit representation, which still should exist, because let's just be honest. Good art and good entertainment should be honest. It needs to be true to life. And if you're not holding the mirror up to reality, then you're not being honest. You're not showing people the real world, and they're going to reject what you're throwing down.
Absolutely. And particularly with something like Transformers, it gets into this funny territory of like, don't you want to share this with other people? Don't you want to share your toys? Don't you want to share your happy connections to characters like Optimus with other people? And a key to doing that is by making those characters more accessible and more relatable and more reflective of the actual world we live in. And as you say, Tim, like, queer people live in the world, and here we are.
How amazing an opportunity to be able to take a hero that you just love, that you grow up with, a character that you really feel strongly about, and let you see yourself in them, but then let your neighbor, who you may feel you have absolutely nothing in common with, be able to see themselves in that character. And now you share that in common, and that you both see these same qualities. And then that's hopefully we get to a place where we realize that our differences aren't really all that different. And hopefully maybe the world gets a little bit happier.
Very well said. Yeah. I mean, I've always been of the thought that Transformers is a unique property where you could do things like this, because robots, I mean, what is more gender fluid than a robot? I mean, a robot can be anything it wants to be, and it could change things every other day and twice on Sundays. I mean, why not explore those things in giant robots?
They are alien robots that turn into cars and jets. Like, sci-fi genre is ripe for using metaphor and allegory, but like these guys in particular, as you say, are like really the epitome of like, no, they lend themselves to these kinds of stories and this kind of representation. And it's probably one of the reasons why I keep coming back to them in my work. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to continue, hopefully broadening what they mean to as many people as possible.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, we got real deep. So let's keep going. So one thing. So in terms of all the Beast Wars characters, I thought they were really well represented in terms of harkening back and homaging the original characters from the show from the '90s show. Although I did feel like one particular Beast Wars character seemed to have his personality tweaked just a little bit. So in particular, Predacon Megatron. So, I felt like the original Megatron was much more of a kind of a schemer, opportunistic, narcissist, kind of, always in it for himself. And this Predacon Megatron in Kingdom, he felt, a little bit more kind of genuine and loyal to the original Megatron, which is, makes him a different character, maybe not better or worse, but definitely different from the conception of the original Beast Wars character, at least that I had in my mind. So what were the thoughts on how you tweaked Predacon Megatron in Kingdom?
May I take this, Tim?
Please.
I think the logic at the time, and the persistent logic, is you have to parallel the relationship of Optimus Primal and Optimus Prime and Megatron. Like, those have to be mirror images of each other. One is dysfunctional and one has to be functional. So if we're creating a world where the Maximal's only understanding of Optimus is that he's this traitor who abandoned them and eventually succumbed to Unicron and became Nemesis Prime, then the opposite of that has to be someone who is like, no, Megatron's my guy. I'm ride or die this Megatron. And that was kind of where that logic was coming from, was that like they had to be opposite and they had to parallel. And you had to see how, one changes over time and one stagnates because it's kind of based on lies, as, Dinobot kind of comes to learn. But yeah, I mean, characters, it's a difficult thing in a franchise like this, a franchise that is, I always say this, it's 40 years old. And in this particular, in Kingdom and in War for Cybertron, there were needs and there were wants and there were the requirements of the story. And you try to retain the beauty and the spirit of every character you can as you continue to push the story forward so you can get it to its climactic conclusion, and that's always the goal. But sometimes things have to change, and sometimes they change more drastically than others, and Predacon Megatron is certainly an example of that.
I mean, I guess it's sort of up for debate, obviously, about whether, like, we don't go in trying to negate anything that and you think about a character, but the hope is always just kind of enrich the character and give you another dimension that maybe you hadn't considered before. And a lot of times, certainly with the G1 characters, maybe even more so than Beast Wars, I think they can be pretty two-dimensional in a lot of aspects, and so you have a lot of opportunity to add some new dimension to them. So I mean, I hope that people look at Beast, we call them Beast Wars Megatron as BW Megatron in the scripts, BW Megatron as a another sort of way of looking at Megatron and emphasizing a quality that maybe we didn't see before, but makes sense and could make sense.
Yeah, and like talk about like changing Transformers to reach the wider breadth of human experience. Like, it's true, like characters can be changed, and hopefully you're adding something and you're adding new dimension or you're adding an aspect to them, and hopefully it can be taken and adapted if you want. It can be retained in future iterations or not. It's a living thing, isn't it? Like these franchises that we love, pop culture that we love. It's a living thing that breathes and changes and, comes back to familiar spaces, goes into unfamiliar territory. Like, it does that constantly.
And I think you got to remember too, we have a show in Kingdom, which is an anomaly. It is an aberration of the timelines we think we understand. And who can say what characters are going to do and how they're going to react when you put them in the same room together, characters who've never been in the same room together. It kind of blows everything up. So it's, well, let me tell you who can say. Mae Catt and Tim Sheridan can say.
Hello.
In Kingdom.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. But that's the fun of it. It's like, well, okay, what's this conversation going to be like that's never taken place on screen before because it didn't make sense in terms of the timeline. A lot of opportunity there, and maybe it sort of alters the way characters think and behave and what they do.
On a related note, I got, when I was watching these episodes, I found myself really interested in the, the future, the Maximal and Predacon future, and what the progression was from from Megatron being turned into Galvatron, and in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, in the Prime timeline or whatever, the timeline A, you got to Transformers the movie. Megatron becomes Galvatron. Prime dies. Some point later, Prime gets resurrected and turned into Nemesis Prime. Some other, somehow, some way, and then much later on, the Maximals and the Predacons, evolve or are born on Cybertron. So I was curious just how much of that backstory you guys had worked out in your head or sketched out on the whiteboard. Did you have like a whole, idea of, okay, well, the Allspark died on Earth, so then how did the Maximals and Predacons come to be on Cybertron? How did Cybertron get new life if the Allspark never made it back there? And how was Unicron able to corrupt Optimus Prime to become Nemesis Prime? And all these interesting questions that get asked in the show, but don't really get answered because they're just interesting backstory, but stuff I was interested in.
Yeah, and it is literally all we ever thought about and talked about. It's like the meat of everything, and it sounds like it could be a great show. So am I going to tell you? No.
Did you have a Doc Brown timeline whiteboard moment?
You know what we did? We totally did.
Yeah, I
remember doing that. I remember getting up and being like, wait, no, this canon into this. Yes, okay.
What's weird is nobody else was in the room when she did that. We all walked in and there's Mae with this like complex set of equations.
I have figured it out.
No, but that really is, it's only honest and only makes sense if it makes sense to us. And so we had to kind of figure out what is Cybertron, in the future, and how does that influence, why they're here and what they're doing. And we had a lot of conversations about it. I wish we could have written more about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, fan fiction, take it away.
Take
the wheel, fan fiction.
I don't want to let fanfic take the wheel.
All right. Well, I guess one question that I think a little bit about, and maybe as a Transformers fan, I feel a little of like a insecurity complex with other media out there, because Transformers, other toy-based properties, they're kind of considered as less than for a lot of media. At least that's my impression. Maybe I'm wrong, but I get the sense that people feel like these are just commercials to sell toys and nothing more. And I'm curious, like, how you guys, when you guys are developing the stuff, or when you guys think about creating these things, what you think about that. I think about the original Transformers the movie. Optimus Prime dying came out of a cynical decision to end his toy, stop producing his toy and make room for other toys on the toy shelf. But then we got, like you said, Tim, that moment really lit a spark for you as a storyteller. So I'm curious what you think of this tension between the real world considerations of selling toys and making IP to support merchandising, and then making really compelling and interesting storytelling.
I mean, I'm a toy collector, So I don't have and I grew up in the 80s, and I have literally no issues with shows that make me want to buy toys. So I have no problem with that. But in terms of the creative, in terms of the storytelling, it doesn't really factor in when we're putting this, when we're, at least for me, May, I don't know about you, but it doesn't really factor into the equation. Sort of, how does this work to sell a toy or something like that? I mean, I don't even remember ever getting a note that said, oh, well, you should have so-and-so transform here or do this move because it's, actually there was one thing that we knew that one of the toys was going to feature a certain action feature, and it was brought up in the room, but not in a way of like, well, now you have to incorporate this to be able to. No, it was brought up as a lark, and I said, what a great idea, and it fueled us to be able to sort of give a new dimension, a new piece of the story. There was something I remember we were trying to figure out, and we were able to figure it out. I think it had to do with Shockwave's cloaking technology, I think. Now that
I don't recall this.
But it really unlocked some stuff for us, and it made it very easy to sort of, which we ended up bringing into Kingdom. I hope. I haven't seen it. But that's that. It's, to me, they're the same thing in my mind. They are when I'm creating a Transformers story, I am playing Transformers just like I did in 1985, and I get to have Optimus Prime say this, and I get to have Elita 1 say this, who I never got to have when I was a kid. So it's like it's even better. It's like 1985 plus for me.
I think, speaking of like this tension you're kind of hitting on, I mean, like, I think there's that tension in pop culture inherently. Like, I went to Art Center College of Design for film school, so there were a lot of auteurs that I was bumming around getting a degree with, and it was a difficult time because I was just like this young 20-something who was like, I just want to write the next Spider-Man movie, and this was kind of, they kind of looked their noses down at me for it, but they're wrong. I mean, like, look at our world, look at our culture, look at our modern myths. I mean, like, yeah, I guess someone could criticize the toy company that wants you to make toy commercials to sell their toys, but like, obviously this thing that has lasted so long deeply means something to people, and you can't criticize, or you can't make that go away. You can't say that's not real. It obviously is. And I guess that I would apply that logic also to fan fiction. Like, sometimes fan fiction gets looked down upon. I'm like, that's where I learned to write, and nothing can take away the time and affection I had as a teenager writing these stories, and how much they meant to me and how much they continue to mean to me. I mean, like, I'm not a religious person, but I'll read Grant Morrison's X-Men whenever I'm feeling like a crisis. Like, that's my go-to. That's what I go to seek sort of, spiritual completion or spiritual like satisfaction. It's popular culture. And I think there's something actually kind of magical to imagine that, like, inside this kid's media is perhaps like the secrets to your happiness. It's like, how beautiful is that? It's like this kid stuff, but this kid stuff which holds so much joy and so much meaning. Like, there's something here, and it's special, and it can't be taken away, regardless of if someone thinks it's silly. Like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, here's the secret. It's May, you say it's kid stuff. Some people look at it like that. The secret is none of it is.
Yeah.
None of it's kid stuff. We're telling stories. And I think that this is more true of new IP than it is of existing IP, but it still can be true in existing IP, which is that people don't buy the toys unless the stories are compelling, unless the stories are good, generally speaking. And, sometimes those things go hand in hand. But I'll tell you what, I'm happy they do, because all I want to do is write Transformers and He-Man and Batman for the rest of my life.
Dude, I remember like going to Target and seeing the first Cyberverse toys like hitting the shelves, And contrary to popular belief, Hasbro had not sent us any toys at that point. So I was like, I'm buying these myself, God damn it. And what like a magical experience that was. To like take them up to the cash register and be like, here's my money that I got from writing this show.
Now Mae knows this story, but I'm going to share with you my little personal thrill of working on War for Cybertron was when I wrote the episodes with in Earthrise with the quintesson judge, Decius. And I remember the day they told me they were going to make a quintesson judge figure. So I waited. I was like, is it possible that they're going to put out this toy and it's going to have the name that I gave this character? I am going to have a toy on my shelf with the name that I named him. And then the figure came out and it said quintesson judge. But then they put out, as I think a Walmart exclusive, the Decius drone figure.
Hell yeah!
And they sent it to me in a what are they, influencer box, because I guess I'm an influencer. No. And there was this. I opened it up and it was like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. It was like and like white, and it was Decius drone, and it's like it's on my shelf, and I feel like, oh my God, to get to contribute in this way as a toy guy who came to Transformers through the toys originally, to get to contribute in that way, to have that name that I gave him up there on the thing. Incredible. It's the greatest thing in the world. I wish it for everyone.
By the way, Mae, who do I have to talk to in the Cyberverse universe to get them to stop calling quintessons quintessins? That's the only thing I hate about Cyberverse.
It was funny. I was actually gonna call out Tim for, you're one of those people, eh?
one of the correct people. Yes,
that was a group decision. That was a group decision where we all like saw it written on the board, and even Gavin, who's like a huge G1, particularly the animated movie fan. Maybe he was resistant to it, but we looked at it on the board and we're like, it's quintessin. Like that's what it looks like. It's quintessin. Come on, it's quintessin.
Could not be more. We've had this discussion, by the way. You're seeing it play out again in front of us. You could not be more wrong. Where's the accent mark
that says quintesson?
It doesn't need to be there. They say the word on the show. Like, we know what it was. There's no debate. They say
this is what's going to get me canceled in Transformers. And I'll remember all of you.
But now, hang on. Let me say this. It is a great, big, beautiful multiverse, perhaps. And in some corners of it, they might pronounce it quintesson.
Sure.
I figured it was holdover from the Netflix Voltron show where they had the quintessence. That was just stuck in people's head.
It was a room decision. Yeah.
But the confusion comes too from the planet Quintessa, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting a book. There was like a children's book I had as a kid that was based around something from Transformers the movie, and it was the story of Wheelie. And
oh yeah,
at the end of the book, Wheelie said the last line of the book, and I'd already seen the movie or I'd seen the show at this point. I knew the planet was called Quintessa. At the end of the book, Wheelie's like, "Wheelie gone from Quintesson."
You're like, son of a bitch.
I was outraged. I said, "It's not called Quintesson, the planet. It's called Quintessa."
It's called quintessin, obviously.
All right, boy. You and me after this podcast.
Smiley goes
Look,
down.
I mean,
we're gonna bring our quintessin toys. One from Cyberverse, one from Earthrise, and we're just going to make a fight.
I mean, I can bring the quote from Transformers the movie. Krennic says, the world of the savage Sharkticons and their cruel masters, the quintessons. That's the first reference.
A lot of things happened in the 80s that were wrong. And perhaps the pronunciation of quintessin is one of them.
Can we take a vote? Does anybody here actually think Mae is going to win, or the Cyberverse room, not just Mae, is going to win this fight?
I'm not, but you're all wrong.
You're not going to win this fight. You are provably wrrong. You've just been proven wrong.
I think we have a new question for a rapid fire. Quintesson or quintesson.
I would love to actually. I think there's an amazing experiment, like Transformers fans, G1 fans, more modern fans, maybe like comic book fans, and as a litmus test, and then like as the control, and then people who know nothing about Transformers. Like, here's this word. How would you say it? They're gonna say quintesson.
What if you,
All right,
hopefully
I've said
we'll
my
do better.
piece. I'm not going to litigate anymore.
Hopefully we'll do better on rapid fire because that took about 10 minutes.
Yeah, so I think we will wrap things up here. Thanks you guys for spending so much time with us. We really appreciate it. And but before we do get into the rapid fire, I do want to ask. So there are a couple of TF cons coming up, and as conventions hopefully come back around at the end of this year and beginning of next year, they've already announced TF Con Baltimore, TF Con Toronto in December, and then TF Con LA in March. So any plans for any of those conventions? I mean, LA would probably be a no-brainer for you guys, maybe.
Which is perfect for us because that's about what we'll bring to the table.
We should do an open mic, like just you and me on a stage being like quintesson.
That's your
Like a
panel.
mock trial.
That's it.
A mock trial.
Yeah.
Guilty or innocent.
Honestly, no plans yet. If anybody wants to reach out to me, my DMs are open, homie. I would love to. I love the TF Con.
Yeah. By the way, same here, and I, vaxxed and ready to mingle over here. But has anybody ever done a quintesson pit mock trial at a TF Con?
That's a great idea.
What a pitch!
The greatest idea I've ever heard.
What a pitch, Tim. It could be us.
I know.
We could be one of the two heads, dude. We just need 3 more people.
Here's your
Talk
panel.
about giving away your good ideas.
We've worn them down.
Yeah, please. Seriously, though, I mean, we could do this all day. Bring us out there. Let us talk.
Give me a microphone.
Give me a microphone and try to pry it away from my cold, dead hands.
A microphone and some bourbon, and I'll tell you about Starscream.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we jump right into the rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
So
Tim,
these
do you want to do a thing where you answer, then I answer real quick?
What do you guys think?
Yeah. That sounds great. These are supposed to be quick. First thing comes in your mind, so you don't spend a lot of time. Just savor the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right, here we go.
All right, ready? Here we go.
Anything that comes to my mind.
Anything.
Related to the
if it's an answer to the question.
Here we go.
All right, here we go. Rapid fire. Autobot or Decepticon?
Decepticon.
And who is your favorite Decepticon?
I've answered.
Galvatron.
Starscream, for the record.
For the record, Starscream.
These are all going to be wrong for me. I'm just going to guess. The first one that I'm thinking that is great.
Favorite Transformers live action movie? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or Bumblebee?
Dark of the Moon.
All right,
Bumblebee.
3. That's Bumblebee. Okay.
Oh, wait, are we coming back? I don't know what we're doing.
You can do it.
Comics. More Than Meets the Eye / Lost Light, Robots in Disguise / Optimus Prime, Till All Are One, or the latest Transformers 2019 reboot?
More Than Meets the Eye, Lost Light, quickly followed by Margaret's books, of course.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, definitely Margaret's. But was OG Marvel not on the list?
You can say that. It was not on the list. We were trying to keep modern comics.
OG
But yeah,
Marvel.
OG. G1?
My first one was I forget what number it is. It's Into the Smelting Pool. Fantastic. Love that cover.
17, I think.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's the one. That's our favorite.
17. It was 17. That's right.
We homaged it in a commissioned cover.
And the name of the character is
Scrounge.
Was it Scrounge?
Yeah.
Blaster's friend. Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember.
Blaster's dear departed friend.
Yeah.
But they released a
Transformed
figure.
into a wheel.
Amazing. All right. Was that it?
All right.
There's more.
There's more. Third-party toys, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Cats.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Coffee.
Chicken or steak?
Steak.
Steak.
Pepsi or Coke?
Coke.
Burger King or McDonald's or something else?
Sure. Well, it's something else. In-N-Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you know what? Dick's in Seattle. Dick's Burgers in Seattle.
I'm still
All right.
going In-N-Out.
It's very specific.
History or science?
History.
Science.
Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo Switch?
Whatever I can play BioShock on.
Atari 2600.
I still have mine up in my attic. PC or Mac?
Mac.
Mac.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
And is there a phone app that you can't live without?
Right now, Carb Manager. Literally.
I could do without all this. You know, I joined TikTok. And that's been fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Animal TikTok.
Marvel-
I was saying animal TikTok is the best TikTok.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
DC. DC.
Oh.
The fine publishers of Teen Titans Academy, available monthly, and Shazam, issue 1, now available.
May, favorite Marvel character?
Spider-Man, closely followed by Wolverine, Laura Kinney.
Tim, favorite DC character?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me favorite Marvel character, and I was just getting excited to do that too. Favorite DC character? I mean, Batman. Although, wait, no, hang on. Favorite DC character? Stitch, created by someone on this podcast.
I wonder who.
Was it me? Did I do it?
It was not you, Daryl. I don't know who it was, but it was not you.
Stitch, by the way,
Pixar-
who is in many ways based on Mae Catt.
Aw, Tim.
Never told May before, but there's a lot about Stitch that comes from May. Anyway,
Now I have to read it.
Thanks. We appreciate your support.
It's on
Yeah.
my pull list.
Pixar or DreamWorks?
Pixar.
Pixar.
Stallone or Schwarzenegger?
Ooh. The Predator.
I'm gonna have to say Stallone.
No. All right. Is there a guilty pleasure movie that you'll watch whenever it's on? Like if it just happens to come by your, in your queue or on cable or whatever?
No, wait.
It's so hard to ask us that question because what other people might consider Transformers the movie a guilty pleasure, which drives me crazy. I'm like, what do you mean? That's not guilty.
I mean, the question was originally based on like if you're flipping through the channels and like 27 Dresses is on and you're like, I'm watching this.
That's my answer. 27 Dresses.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know if it counts as a guilty pleasure. My go-to. Oh, you know what? Guilty pleasure, Dragonheart. Absolutely. Sean Connery's
okay.
Dragonheart.
All right.
There you go.
Nice. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Oh, what? Did you answer that?
Star Trek.
No, I'm pleading the fifth. On the grounds that I may be incriminated.
Simpsons, Family Guy, or Rick and Morty?
Simpsons.
Plead the fifth. Probably Simpsons.
We should probably cut this question. Walking Dead or Game of Thrones?
Eh.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Neither.
most of Game of Thrones and the incredible, Lena Headey as Cersei, also as Evelyn in Masters of the Universe Revelation, now streaming on
Sam, you're so good at
William
this.
Cunningham as Man at Arms, Sir Davos.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay, sports: NFL, MLB, NHL, UFC, NBA, or Premier League.
NCAA football.
Basketball.
NBA. You're going with NBA?
Yeah. The sports.
We should add Olympics to that right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
ACC, by the way, for me too. Just so in case anybody's keeping score.
Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, or Volkswagen Beetle.
Volkswagen Beetle.
I'll take the Ferrari in black, please.
We are not giving you those as being on the podcast.
And our last question: blonde, brunette, or redhead?
Well, you're going to have to buy me dinner to find out.
Yeah. I refuse to answer.
Brunette. Brunette. If you meet my husband, you'll know. Brunette. Formerly blonde, though. He was blonde at one point.
That question usually ends up, what is the hair color of my spouse at this time?
See, there you go. Because we're not stupid.
No, the hair color changes, right? That's or you change by.
Oh, got it.
This is exactly
That's a dark place.
this is exactly the kind of podcast that Brian is going to watch. So, hi. Your hair looks great.
It's also the question, like, did you actually watch it or not? You know, there was a question that should have triggered you.
That's true.
All right. Well, congratulations. You have successfully cleared the gauntlet, the rapid fire questions gauntlet. Congratulations.
We did it. We did it.
We did it together.
Yeah.
Like the Autobots and the Maximals.
Yeah, and it was a pretty good baton race there, just like the writing of Transformers War For Cybertron Kingdom, streaming now on Netflix.
And as part of your parting gift for making it through the rapid fire questions, you are given an open invitation to co-host on Transmissions at any point in the future. So,
Well, fabulous.
you know.
That's very nice. Thank you. Well, you can negotiate that through my rep.
Is that Unicron? Is Unicron your rep?
It's true. I wish.
Oh
I
my
get
God.
everything.
You could
Unicron's a hard
like put the
bargain.
phone into like the maw.
Most of the time, I'm negotiating a contract, and I'm like, "Yeah, I want this," and they're like, "Proceed your way, oblivion."
I want to see you like look at Unicron and just be like, "Oh, Unicron, we're really in it now."
When are we going to do that Unicron buddy cop movie that we wanted to make?
Wait, who's the other buddy?
Bumblebee.
What?
Unicron and Bumblebee.
It just works. And Unicron would constantly be just like, I'm getting too old for this shit.
I was one day away from retirement. And I get saddled with this kid.
Doing donuts on the surface of my face.
This time we're doing it by the book.
Yeah, and Bumblebee only uses radio voice, not because he has to. He just likes it better that way.
Because it pisses off Unicron.
Yeah. He's like, what are you trying to say? Just say it.
Why are we telling them this? This is gold. You can make a fortune.
We're getting the War for
I'm
Cybertron
writing it.
sequel series
Writing
here.
it all
Yeah.
down.
Unicron and Bumblebee. Unicron and Bumblebee. One's a planet, the other's a bee. Unicron and Bumblebee.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been a blast and a half. We really appreciate you guys coming on, and yeah, this spending close to 2 hours with us. That's awesome.
We love talking.
Oh.
It's a problem.
Speaking of Brian, if you're watching, I know I haven't made dinner yet, but I promise you it's happening. It's happening very soon.
So everyone check out War for Cybertron Kingdom. You should have already watched it before you watched or listen to this podcast. We're
But watch
sorry
it
we
again.
spoiled.
Hopefully you're watching this on the first weekend, because let me tell you what Netflix likes to see. Our viewers on that first weekend, multiple viewings would be great too. If you really liked it, put it on, watch it again. Look at me, tap dancing for Netflix over here. But I'm tap dancing for Transformers.
Why don't you watch this podcast while it's on in the background? Like, come on.
If you want more content like this, though, you have to watch it. And you have to watch it on the weekend it comes out. You just have to. That's the economy of this thing. So please watch it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't minor in like marketing, Tim?
It's just I've been through this so many times.
This is the summer of Tim. Like all of the projects that you were writing when we first met are coming into fruition. You're so practiced at this right now.
Everything I have ever worked on is being released within a 2-week period in June and the beginning of July, or end of July, end of June, and it's absurd. And no one will know who I am next year. I will come begging to be on your show, and you won't be like,
who is this?
Yeah.
Wait, one question. How do you pronounce quintessin?
Yeah.
It really should be the code word for entry.
Yeah.
Pronounce.
That was a trick. It's quintesson. Well, do you want to anything? I know you mentioned a couple of projects you're working on, but you can't really talk about. But is there if you want to give your social media, anything you want to promote? Now is the time to plug whatever you'd like to, in addition to War for Cybertron Kingdom.
Man, you want to do it? You want me to do it? I'm going to plug myself. I'm going to say, follow me on Twitter at I am Tim Sheridan. Pick up a copy of Batman: The Long Halloween, Part 1 and Part 2. Pick up Teen Titans Academy, Shazam every month from DC Comics. And check out Masters of the Universe Revelation, also on Netflix. And get ready for a project coming out soon in which you might see Mae Catt and my name somewhere involved.
Somewhere in there. Well, God, I should have gone first because that was an impressive list. Well, I would say, yes, if you like listening to this nonsense, you can follow me. I'm at Mae Catt on Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr, and it's a unique name. I'm also on TikTok. And I would say, like, hey, thanks for watching. Thank you for supporting Kingdom. It might, look, these shows might not be everyone's cup of tea, but the support to get more content like this is invaluable. So thank you. I hope to see you on the next Transformers venture and the next thing and the next thing. And also, I think what's very important, if you want a specific kind of representation, be loud and proud of that. And, I think to see the real world examples of all the wide breadth of people existing in the real world helps us also. And I think it can be a beautiful Ouroboros of a situation. So please be vocal, be out, be loud, be proud. I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a very special Transmissions Alt Mode. Thanks again to our guests, Tim Sheridan and Mae Catt, for joining us for this very long deep dive into War for Cybertron Kingdom. We really appreciate it. And for more great content like this, you can check out our website, transmissionspodcast.com. We do 2 shows every week about Transformers. One show all about Transformers toys and merchandise. That's Transmissions. And then Transmissions Alt Mode is all about Transformers comics and media. And we spend a lot of time on media this episode here. So.
I think this week we have 20 shows.
Yeah. So I should mention we did our non-spoiler review of War for Cybertron Kingdom. That was last week. Now we have our spoiler-filled review of Kingdom coming out very soon, if it's not already out. And we did an interview with showrunners F.J. DeSanto and Matt Murray as well. So, yeah, lots of Kingdom stuff going on.
We're here. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, really. Thank you.
So all that should be out by the time you're watching this, of course, on YouTube and in our podcast feed, and you can find us on all the, podcast readers, apps, wherever, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or Google Podcasts, all the good stuff. So thanks again for watching and listening, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Later.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions Podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.